As the controversies over the CAMA Act rages, the Vice President Yomi Osinbajo tells religious leaders to approach the Parliament for changes. And the court in Ondo State has asked that the suspended lawmakers who refuse to sign Ondo Deputy Governor's impeachment be reinstated. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimaloye in Lagos. Tonight, we're looking at the CAMA law. Religious leaders are voicing their discontent about some section of that law. It gets us talking tonight and we are dissecting what it means. Perhaps the Vice President, who is a professor of law, has given an insight on the way manner these differences can be resolved. And so tonight, we'll look into the matter. But first, let us give you some stories coming from Ondo State and the politics there. After a few weeks of being suspended by their colleagues, there is some sort of reprieve for suspended members of the Ondo State House of Assembly. Today, an Ondo State High Court sitting in Akure has reinstated the Deputy Speaker of the Ondo State House of Assembly, Honorable Roju Ogundeji, and two other lawmakers who were recently suspended by the leadership of the House of Assembly there over alleged misconduct. Apart from reinstating the lawmakers, the court also ordered Ondo State House of Assembly to immediately pay all their entitlements with a sum of 5 million naira compensation to each of them. The presiding judge, Justice Ademola Bola, insisted that it was illegal and to prevent an elected legislator from duly representing his or our constituency. The Deputy Speaker and the other two suspended lawmakers were among 9 members of the House who declined to sign the impeachment notice on the Deputy Governor Agbola Ajayi 2 months ago after the Deputy Governor defected from the APC to the PDP. Some things to learn, one or two thereabouts, you might be able to pick tonight on the program, very important, about what has become a major conversation tonight in the country. Tonight, we shall be dissecting the very touchy Corporate and Allied Matters Act. Stay with us as we, first of all, check out some of your top political stories and our political roundup.
President Muhammadu Buhari is again asking the military junta in Mali to set an acceptable timetable for a return to democratic government, since the country cannot afford to stand alone in the sub-region. He made the comments today during the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government's virtual meeting. The Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has promised to restore the framework for grazing reserves and cattle routes in the state, following reports that the entire forest and grazing reserves have been taken over by the elite.
Now the presentation of the documentary report.
This comes after the committee investigating the recent disputes between farmers and herders in Mizar community submitted its report to the governor. The committee warns that there is an imminent danger ahead for herders who may lose their sources of livelihoods due to massive encroachment of the reserve lands, and government must act fast to protect the forest reserves.
We are ready to protect the vulnerable, the less privileged, the weak within us, on whose sweat Nigeria is living.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has assured Nigerians of conducting credible, fair and acceptable election as the people of Plateau South Senatorial District go to the polls for the by-elections scheduled for October the 31st this year. Addressing stakeholders at the INEC office in Jos, the State Resident Electoral Commissioner Halilu Pai assured residents of the electoral body's readiness to conduct the elections with some innovations that will ensure transparency and fairness.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So let's dive straight into the matter of tonight. It's Friday, but this matter tonight is not casual in any sense of it. It's a very important one. So get a seat, get a cup of water, a cup of coffee, whatever the situation may be, and let's get talking. Earlier this month, precisely on the 7th of August 2020, the amended Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, was assented to by President Muhammadu Buhari. The bill was expected to engender corporate legal innovations geared towards enhancing ease of doing business in Nigeria. But there has been a huge criticism to some of the details of the amended law and some sections in there, and quite a number of religious leaders have picked holes in some of it, both Christian and Muslims, are kicking against and agitating towards some of these areas of the law. Perhaps the most worrying for these religious leaders is the section 839, subsection 1 and 2 of the new law, which provides that the Registrar General of Corporate Affairs Commission and a supervising minister will strictly regulate religious bodies and non-governmental organizations. But the Vice President today, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, said that the major concern of religious leaders with the recently enacted Company and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020, is the fear that the processes are not abused in a way that compromises the entire structure and operation of the organization. Professor Osinbajo, who spoke during the Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference, said that these leaders want to be accountable, contrary to views based on reactions to a section of the Act. He maintained that the CAMA 2020 is massive legislation that covers a wide range of issues on companies, and if a section is contentious, what the aggrieved parties can do is to approach the National Assembly and propose an amendment. Professor Osinbajo said, let me quote to you some part of what Professor Osinbajo said today. He said, and I quote, "What can be done is that whatever the proposal for amendment may be, whatever the views of the leadership of the church may be regarding the question of how the trustees, whether they are interim trustees or not, can be put in the form of a proposal that will be taken to the National Assembly for consideration for an amendment to the law. That is a process which is entirely open and ought to be pursued." That is the intervention of Professor Osinbajo. Don't forget, he's not only a vice president, he's a professor of law, and he was talking to lawyers. And so let's take a look at what this all means together. Now, when the vice president had said they should approach the legislature, we'll be hearing from the lawmaker, the representative of the House of Representatives, where this law emanated from and the way to go, whether or not they are also expecting this kind of reaction. But first, let us hear from the civil society organizations who have put this in the forefront. I have joining me tonight on the program the country director of Amnesty International, Ms. Osai Ojugo. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ms. Ojugo. And the representative of the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, is also with us on the program. At some point, I will be hearing from him on where to go in what has become a major controversy in the country. So let's begin with the country director of Amnesty International. Give us a sense of what the concern here is. The framers of the law are saying that they want a situation where things are regulated and done properly based on standard global practice. What is the contention here?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the program today. I think we need to put things in perspective, and the major issue is about the people's trust in their government and in their ability to do things fairly, and to prevent a situation where excessive powers would lead to further violations of human rights. So regulation of NGOs, and as we have also seen, other charity organization has been a big debate in Nigeria in the last 10 years. And we've seen over the course of several legislative processes that there have been attempts to regulate NGOs in one shape or form. And many of the arguments has always been you cannot legislate NGOs and then restrict their rights to assembly and their rights to association. So the major concerns about the CAMA is the excessive powers that it gives the Corporate Affairs Commission to be able to intervene and if I must use this word, interfere in the affairs of NGOs, which by their name already are supposed to be different from government. That is why it's non-governmental organizations. And while we recognize the fact that in every society we must respect the rule of law, and law is there to serve the people, the law must not now be used as a tool of oppression and intimidation to prevent many organizations from achieving their objectives. I think the law has been, the CAMA Act as it currently stands in Part F with regards to non-governmental organizations is going to be a threat to freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and by extension, freedom of expression. So we need to guard that very seriously.
The bone of contention here, aside from the one that gave a lot of concern to people like you who are in the NGO and the civil society community, is what you have mentioned. For religious leaders, churches and mosques, which Section 839 has specified, the framers are saying, look, they were just wanting some kind of regulation where things are being done fairly. Do you object to that?
I think you need to, you can't divorce what is happening and with the churches who are part of the charity sector from what the impact would also be on NGOs. So when you talk about fairness, we're talking about ensuring transparency, we're talking about accountability, and we're also talking about a process whereby people they feel that when they bring their matters, the matters will be dealt with without any bias. A situation where you've given powers to a body, an executive body like the CAC, there's the danger that they would act based on any form of regulation that exists rather than in the interest of the organizations. And this is where the danger lies, because if an organization has an objective which the CAC does not understand because they are not the subject matter expert on that issue, how can they decide whether such an organization is actually fulfilling of any regulatory body? So they need to be very careful in terms of how this is interpreted. And that was why I said, if I may use the word, it's good.
All right, let me get the Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, into the conversation. Honorable, you've heard what people are saying, especially about this law, and they wonder had to do with the religious organization. The Vice President has given his advice today that, look, the religious organizations should go back to the National Assembly. What is the immediate reaction of the National Assembly, especially the House, where this law originated from?
Thank you, Cheryl. I've not been privileged to hear what the other colleagues are discussing on this issue. I have to say that I want to thank viewers for tuning in. The CAMA 2020, in discussing it, to be fair, to highlight some of the benefits of this particular CAMA 2020. And from there, we'll go and discuss this section 839, as you rightly pointed out. It is important for Nigerians to know that this CAMA brought a lot of innovation to the obsolete 28 years, 30 years Company and Allied Matters Act. It has introduced in each section 18 subsection 2 the provision of single-member private company. And also, the common seal is no longer a mandatory obligation, a requirement. Lawyers will understand this more. In each section 175, subsection 1, the issue of technology, electronic, shared electronic meetings has been provided for electronic filing, which was not existing before now. And due to COVID, this particular provision is relevant to enable us maintain the protocol. Also, there has been a reduction of filing fees for the registration of charges. This is one of the benefits, and also the creation of limited liability partnership and a limited partnership. So you have the LP and the LP, which was not existing before. The exemption of small companies from the appointment of auditors. You will find that in section 402. of this particular CAMA, and also the exemption from the appointment of a company secretary according to Section 330, subsection 1. These are some of the benefits this particular amended CAMA brought into place. But on Section 839, which appears to be, the issue, contentious at the moment, the Vice President, like you rightly pointed out, an erudite scholar who knows the law, who has taught the law, who is still teaching the law, gave the right advice to all the people who are concerned with Section 839, subsection 1 and subsection 2.
Honorable, apologies to cut in. We are due for a break, but when we come back, I would like you to explain further on that Section 839, which is a major issue for a lot of Nigerians here. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll talk more. My panel will see here to give you a sense of what these all means together for you and several Nigerians. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Religious leaders are not happy about the CAMA law in Nigeria. It's not an executive order. It's a law that was amended and sent to by the president, amended by the two chambers, agreed on the two chambers of the National Assembly, and assented to by the president. So Section 839 gets us talking, and the VP has given his advice. So the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, and Ms. Osai Ojigo, who is the country director of Amnesty International, both of them are panel and guests tonight on the program. Let me get back to Honorable Kalu. Thank you so much, Honorable, for staying with us. The Section 839 seems to be the gray point or the gray area in this piece of legislation. And when the VP said they should go to anybody who has a problem with it, especially the religious leader, should go to the National Assembly. How do you think that this will happen?
Yeah, like you said, we should speak more on this. Let me let Nigerians know what the Section 839, subsection 1 and 2 says in a summary, to paraphrase it. It says it empowers the CAC to suspend trustees of an association or appoint interim managers to manage the affairs of the association in the event that some wrongdoing is found to be perpetrated by the said trustees of the association. This is where most people have problem with this particular CAMA, not the other sections that I mentioned that has a lot of benefits in it. Now, the question becomes, what the Vice President said, was it in order or not? The answer is yes. What the Vice President said was totally in order. And why do I say so? There is a constitutional provision for amendment. Remember, what we are talking about, CAMA 2020, is an amended legislation. And that you amended a legislation, a piece of legislation, does not mean that you now foreclose, you close every window for further amendment. The laws are made for the people. If there are issues with a piece of legislation, like in this case, which has been going through the process for about 4 years now, I think it started when the current speaker was a leader of the House. I was following from outside the parliament. As a lawyer, I've been monitoring it. It's been around for about 4 years. It was expected that stakeholders will participate through public hearing, through stakeholders' feedback with regards to a particular piece of legislation that is going to be made for them. And if in this case, people did not take it serious when invitation was given, this is my way of calling Nigerians, whenever a piece of law is being made, they should show interest. When there is public hearing, people should show interest. People should not, just stay clear and say it doesn't.
Honorable, if I may quickly ask, people raised issue at the public hearing about this part and some sections that they are not happy about. But it does look like this still scaled through, even with all of these resentments that people have raised over these sections.
No, before this comment started coming up, the law has already been, the bill has already been made an act. And, like I wanted to point out, Section 4 of the Constitution grants the National Assembly the power to make laws, which includes bill amendment, to existing legislation. So this legislation, it should not cause the kind of problem it's causing at the moment, because there is still a window to further amend it. It is important for people to know that we also recognize it in our House rules. In Order 13 and Order 12, Order 13 sub 1 will tell you how we even amend the Constitution. So if we can amend the Constitution, with the exception of section 8 and section 9, which there is a specific rules that you must follow in amending because it has to do with state creation. But other parts of the Constitution, there is a provision for us to amend the Constitution, and that is the grundum. If you can amend the Constitution,
sorry to break into that line of thought. How easy is it to amend this act? It generated a lot of public agitation. So how easy is it to amend it? Under how many weeks, for example, can this happen?
Now, the provision of the Constitution in Section 4 that I mentioned allows us to do this amendment, and also the House rule in Order 12 of our House rule outline how you amend a bill. It's similar to bringing up a new bill. So what happened is that a person who is interested, which in this case the religious organization or the organizations that are affected, you have representatives. Wherever you are located, there is a representative. You put your paperwork together, your areas of concern, and push through your representative. What the representative does is to notify, come by way of notice to the clerk of the House, highlighting the provisions of the particular CAMA 2020 that need to be attended to. It is required of the clerk to immediately circulate this particular provisions that you are concerned with about, to all the members of the House of Representatives that I'm speaking for. Now, if to follow that, you have to also do what they call compilation or a compendium of the provisions. You publish you print out the provision, attach. If it's a new one, in this case, it's amendment, so you don't need to do background information on it. Now, what happens is that it goes to the speaker. The speaker will approve it to be scheduled. It will be scheduled, and it will be given a date for the first hearing. Now, this amendment will go through the first hearing, second hearing, third hearing, and from there, we can go. Just the process of making a new bill. That's what it goes.
So, Honorable, hold on for a moment. Honorable, hold on for a moment. Let me ask this question, and let me go to Mr. Ojigo. For those who believe that, for example, in England and Wales, where there is the Charity Commission, some people will say, look, this is a similar bill of similar standard outside of this country. Why is the agitation in Nigeria where some of the religious leaders who own establishment in these climes obey similar law?
So you see, when we talk of similar laws, we also look at are the processes the same, and will they observe the rule of law when they are implementing the provisions of the Act? That is a question which I think goes back to the point I made earlier. If we're in a country where, based on the whims and caprices of ministers, of commissioners, that can just lift a fine, for example, like the recent incidents involving the Nigerian Broadcasting Code, can just increase the fine unilaterally and then impose it without going through a process of fair hearing. And then you have to spend many more months and years again in court trying to clarify the issue. Then you can understand why people are agitating for a law that is fair and is transparent, and that powers are not unnecessarily kept in the hands of the few. The other thing you need to also bring on to the fore is that a lot of the conversations about the benefits of this law is about the ease of doing business. But on the other hand, they've now decided to put shackles on the hands of those who shout out for social justice and who also act as a conscience of the people. So we need to look at the values behind the way these provisions have entered into the new CAMA to say, what is the justification for making it easier for businesses to thrive? And then you make it harder for non-governmental organizations to do the same. Is it because they're the watchdogs of society? Is it because that they're independent of government? Is it because they're not like businesses bringing in funds into the economy?
All right.
Why the discriminatory...
So let's because we are out of time now, Ms. Ojigo, let me allow Honorable Benjamin Kalu the final word now. And Honorable, I'm going to plead for your indulgence to respond to this question just in 30 seconds. For those who think that this was an executive bill, and was perhaps rammed through the National Assembly without public hearing. And perhaps some people will say it was surreptitiously. Some of these sections was infused into the CAMA Act. Is that the case? Just in 30 seconds.
No, it's not. That is not the case. This, like I said, this has been around for about 4 years now. And the lady that just spoke now, I'm sure they had the chance to make their input to this law, just like any other person from any other sector of the economy. He that comes to equity must come with clean hand, and equity is the vigilant, not the indolent. If you are indolent, when something that you're supposed to act on, you refuse to act on it, you cannot come back and start complaining. But having said that, these laws are not cast on stones. They are not like the 10 Commandments that was given to Moses. These laws are subject to amendment, and I've given you constitutional provision for that allows amendment to be done, even to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even to our own rules. And we have captured that in our own Order 12 of our rule book, saying this is the process for you to amend it. Let them embrace it. Like the Vice President said, embrace it and stop, the acrimony and the shouting, complaining, and the raising of tension. It is time now for all these stakeholders who have legitimate complaint to put themselves together and present it to the House. Let's start the process. Let's stop talking. Let's start working.
Honorable Benjamin Kalu, I must sincerely thank you for the thoughts, and perhaps I hope that a lot of people who are agitated about this now have tonight. And a sincere thanks to Ms. Osai Ojigo, the country director of Amnesty International. Thank you so much for coming tonight, both of you. Appreciate it. Well, that's our show for tonight. It's Friday, and you know what? I wish you a wonderful and pleasant weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.